Hi, everybody. Craig from URComped here with the Comp Travel Interview. We've got a very special guest. This is an interview I am super excited about because it's an area, even though I used to work in the casino, I don't know a lot about it. And we've got a guy that knows probably more than I don't know. You're humble. I know you wouldn't say more than anybody, but I know you've got an amazing career and you know a lot of people. And we're gonna learn a lot about table games with Bennie Mancino, Vice President of Table Games at Hard Rock, Cincinnati. He also runs Be in the Know, a amazing vlog you should check out on YouTube if you want to dive even deeper into table games. So Bennie, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, Craig, thanks for having me.
So why don't we start out by talking a little bit about your background? I know now you're in Cincinnati, but you said that you spent a lot of time in Las Vegas. So why don't you walk us through kind of your history in the casino business?
All right, well, I'm going to run you through about 40 years in about 40 seconds. So anyway, I was a horse trainer, believe it or not. I've been around some form of gambling since I was 3 years old. I was picking tickets up off the grounds of Ascot Park in between Cleveland and Akron when I was 3 years old. I got into going to the races with my father. He was a tire builder in Akron, Ohio. And that came to a love for the racing. And at one point in time, I said I wanted to be a trainer. And I thought I could read it out of a book and learn it, which was, like anything you try to read, it just ain't the same thing. And I ended up being a groom and then became a trainer, won 4 training titles in Northfield Park back in the early 80s. And I was very successful, 22 horse stable. And then like all good stories, sometimes it doesn't have a happy ending. And my main owner, who owned 17 horses, died a horrible death of cancer. And I watched that as a young man, and it really didn't go with my psyche. And I just said, I need a change. I need to get out of this. And the only other thing I knew by luck, and this is an amazing story, is that one of my owners run casino nights. And part of the deal to train his horse was I had a deal for him when I wasn't training horses or not racing. And so I did that on the weekends, and that's the only thing I learned. I learned how to deal a cash crap game. And now I've got this great idea. I go home and tell my girlfriend, who's now my wife of 26 years, that, hey, great idea. I'm going to go to Vegas and become a casino dealer. And if that don't work out, they're building a track in California, and I should have my mind cleared by then, and we'll go for it. So that's the story. I go out. I learned I have to go to a dealing school because I don't know how to really deal with chips or cards or blackjack. I don't know nothing about that. I only dealt cash crap game. And I learned to deal, and I started dealing. I got bored with dealing the one game, learned all the games, got bored with knowing all the games. They said, hey, do you want to be a dual rate floor person? I'm like, what's that? And I found out that was, being a floor person part-time. And one thing led to another, and I just kept learning and growing. And, now I'm vice president of a beautiful casino in Cincinnati.
Now, what was the first casino you worked at in Las Vegas?
Oh, so I could tell the story and it could go on forever, but so my first casino in Las Vegas, I went for an interview, which is an audition. When you're a dealer, you got to go and you got to perform the game in front of people at 3 a.m. at the El Cortez. This is early 80s, right? And Las Vegas Boulevard down there at that time of night was not the place it is now. Very, very seedy, very scary for a Midwestern boy to see this. And I go into so anyway, I got scared when I went down the elevator and got in El Cortez, and the scene just about, threw me into a panic. And I said, I can't deal here. I can't deal here at 3 a.m. So I actually blew the audition at the El Cortez because I didn't want to deal there. I pitched the cards over the players' shoulders and paid losers and everything. And, the guy who taught me how to deal blackjack, I call him the next day, and he says, Benny, you failed an audition at the El Cortez. And I said, yes, I did. And he says, nobody fails an audition at the El Cortez. I said, well, I was nervous, man. I said, because I didn't want to tell him I just didn't want to deal there, because he would never have sent me on another audition. So he sends me to an even greater venue the next day, which is the Poker Palace, North Las Vegas. It's been there for about, I think, 60 years. Four-table place. Went there in day shift. Hey, it looked really nice. I'm like, this ain't bad. I can deal with this as a first job. And, at the Poker Palace, you spent your first week on day shift, and then you went to swing shift. And let me tell you something, Craig, coming out of that building at night was sort of probably had to be similar to Baghdad in the middle of the siege. So, the Poker Palace, Las Vegas, that's short story. That's where I started.
That's amazing. So then you obviously were successful. You kept taking bigger positions, and it sounds like moved casino to casino. So then what was your last gig in Vegas before coming back to Cincinnati?
Well, my longest run in Vegas was coincidentally the Hard Rock Las Vegas for 12 and a half years. And then I got the opportunity to take a director's job downtown, and I was director of table games for the D and the Golden Gate for Derek Stevens. Then I moved on to the downtown Grand as director of casino operations. That was my last job. And then my wife got a job here in Ohio as executive director of the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association. And I came out here with the intent of just training. We still had 10 horses. I just had the intent of training a couple of the horses and taking care of my daughter, which we had late in life. And, somebody found out I was out here, and one thing led to another, and I got back into the casino business for the Jack Entertainment, which they ended up selling the Cincinnati property to Hard Rock, which I couldn't resist, staying with something that I had loved for so long during that 12 years in Vegas.
Now, over the years, I'm sure you've seen table games shifting a lot, but man, with these changes due to the coronavirus, I mean, have you ever seen, no one's ever seen anything like this, but have you ever seen, as a leader, been forced to come up with new strategies and new tactics like this quickly? I mean, what has this been like for you as a leader, thinking, how do we reopen games? How many people do we put at the table? What do we do? Like, what has this been like for you?
Nobody's been through a pandemic, but we have been through some significant financial events. The 911, affected the business. The market crash, the mortgage crash of 2007-8 was a big, and you had to on the fly, figure out how to turn your business around and do more with less. And the good thing about it, though, both them incidents, 2001, the 911 and the mortgage crash. I was at the Hard Rock, and Hard Rock was talking about table games and resiliency. It was amazing. The only thing that got in our way at the Hard Rock Las Vegas was we were the last company to do one of these big, gigantic, mega expansions. We built another tower. We took our table games from 80 games to 147. We had more table games than the MGM Grand when we finished our construction. And downsizing to a new normal was something we had to do on the fly. But our base business never really changed that much. It was there, and our crowd at the Hard Rock was just oblivious to world events. They just came back and they wanted to party and they wanted to have a hard time. Doing that now in this environment's a little tougher. There's no high fives. There's no fist pumps. There's none of the stuff that we normally do in our world. So now we've had to figure out how to amplify the service. And doing that with a mask on, sometimes when you talk to a person with a mask on, they feel that you're being short or rough. They can't tell. They can't see the expression on your face. So it takes a lot it's a big conversion, Craig, from the life we known. And I think we'll be in this for several more months, and it's just something we got to perfect as we go along. Nobody knows how to. There's no playbook.
And are most of the jurisdictions mandating how many people can sit at a table, or there has to be plexiglass or anything like that, or how much is left up to the property?
Well, the thing is that the Wynn Resort in Las Vegas wrote this Bible, the first book of Wynn on how to come back after a pandemic. And I always said, people took this like it was the Constitution. The day it came out, I had 6 calls from operators What do you think about this? What I said, this is Wynn trying to get back open. They started off with version 2.1, and by the time they opened the doors, it was 3.7 was the version of this plan that they were on. It changed, it evolved some of the very strict protocols, which they should have stuck to. If they would have stuck to the strict protocols to begin with, Las Vegas may not be in the precarious position it is right now, which it's in a dire straits. So a lot of jurisdictions, hey, I don't have to do the work. Wynn did this great plan, and a lot of it was three players on a blackjack game, and to be honest, there's no social distancing in a table game. No matter which way or where you do the math or how you pull the tape measure, you're not going to get to 6 feet. So if I'm not wearing a mask and you're not wearing a mask, we're in big trouble. But if we're both wearing a mask and we sanitize our hands, there's a good chance we're not going to get the virus at a table game. So that's, most jurisdictions have adopted some form of the original Wynn plan, which ended up becoming Nevada Gaming's plan.
Yeah, it is interesting, and how much as a leader you have to think about too. It's like, how much is placebo effect? Like, we have to do this so customers feel comfortable, versus how much is actually going to prevent the spread of a virus.
Yeah, and it depends on how much of the media coverage you have absorbed. Mm-hmm. You can see the people who just constantly stayed on CNN and never left the TV. They're absolutely scared to death. They're putting hand sanitizer on top of gloves, which we can't have on a handheld table game. But they're doing that because that's how paranoid they are, and I don't think that does you any good. That's my opinion. But depending on your exposure to the media or your tolerance for this virus, depends on what kind of optic we have to give you. And a lot of it is optics. But I'll tell you, I'm very proud of working for this company here, because we went to the far extreme to begin with. Hard Rock International mandated plexiglass on every table game that could possibly be on. There's a couple that it's kind of hard to get the right kind of plexi to be safe. You have more chance of tripping over something than catching the virus. But besides that, we've got plexi on almost every game, in between the games, everything. We have a requirement right off the bat that the players and the dealers wear masks. And everybody has the option of wearing gloves if and when they want them.
So are these plexiglass salespeople, are they sitting on yachts right now? I mean, is this the best year they've had?
Well, I'll tell you what, when you sell a piece of 6-foot plexiglass for $1,200, you got to be doing something right. It's something right, because that's basically all you're getting is a 6 feet piece of plexiglass on a blackjack game with a couple metal rods that cost about 75 cents, and there you go. But you know what? Somebody was smart enough to come up with the idea and put it out there, and they're making bank now. And believe it or not, they made more in the last month than they made to begin with, because a lot of people didn't adopt. Some of the Arizona properties, they either tried to make their own or they didn't, and they had that big surge down there. And from what I'm hearing from the vendors, some of them, it's a 3 and 4 week turnaround time compared to they were shipping them out immediately when we got ours.
So, any other new technologies that you're being pitched, you guys are considering that are directly related to the current situation? And then I'd love to later get on to just kind of cool new technologies you're seeing, because I know that's something you're doing with Be in the Know, your vlog on YouTube. But yeah, what about any other tech COVID related?
Well, there's a big push to go cashless. In table games, I think the dirtiest thing we deal with is money, right? Chips, every property that I know have washed their chips in one form or another, either with a professional company or in just a regular, 212 degree bar dishwasher. Everybody's washed their chips, so the chips should come out and they're absolutely spotless. You got a dealer who's putting hand sanitizer on their hands. You got a player who's putting hand sanitizer on their hands. So they're pretty clean. But what do you do with the money? You got all this stuff clean, and the minute that guy pulls that money out of his pocket, you got to sanitize up. So, but cashless entry into a game is something that's going to come. And there's a couple systems right out there now that allow you to do an ATM transaction. I think one of them is called Pay As You Go or something, and they have them at several properties at Las Vegas. The problem with that is that some of the outlying jurisdictions, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, to get a new technology through, it could take quite some time. And I think maybe this COVID pandemic will expedite some of them approvals for them cashless options.
Understood. And then so that makes sense. And I could definitely see that. And on, I guess, on slot machines, I know it went from money and coins to now ticket in, ticket out. Now they're talking a lot about the same thing where it's just buying with your phone and then cash out or whatever. So that'd be interesting. Is it, when new technologies come in, is it hard to train your staff? I mean, how, because on a slot machine, you put in a new technology, I guess you need to train a slot tech, but with table games, you have a lot more human interaction. Is that something you have to consider when looking at new technology?
Well, it's the same as considering a brand new table game. If it isn't something your 3-year-old can handle, you better not bring it into the game because it's not going to be successful. It's got to be bomb proof. And most of these technologies I've seen them at G2E are fairly simple. They're like you said, they're nothing more than a tap of your phone and an amount, and it's pretty seamless process.
And so you talked about new table games. So what's like the last new table game that you remember seeing that stuck? Because I know I've been to G2E and there's always some table games, and like you said, I probably have the mind of a 3-year-old, and I'm watching, I'm like, I don't get this. There's no hope. But what's the last game that you can remember that came in and it actually stuck around?
Well, believe it or not, I invented 2 games that are only they're at Hard Rock Cincinnati and they are at Jack Cleveland. They're under different names. When I was with the Jack Entertainment, they were very, they loved innovation, and they promoted that. And they allowed me to develop 2 games. One's Jack, which is at Hard Rock. It's changed its name to Hard Rockin' 21. And then I had a side bet, which very kind of similar to Bonus Craft, but not quite. It works in a different way. It was called Hot Hand Dice for Jack Entertainment, which they have it in their property in Cleveland. And we have it as Hard Rockin' Dice down in Cincinnati. And I came up with them 2 games, and they've been very, very popular. The thing is, if we expand past our properties, then we would have to get into the vendor licensing and stuff like it. So a lot of places, if you're going to want to play it, you're going to have to go to one of them 2 properties. Play very popular. Like Rockin' 21 has 13 units in Cincinnati, just smoking. And it's a very simple game. Talking about simplicity. Where all it is, if you got 2 cards that are a blackjack, and they're black, you get paid 2 to 1. Where do you get 2 to 1 on blackjack in the world? But you do it at Hard Rock Cincinnati. And 2 red cards pays 3 to 2. And the only drawback, you got 1 bad payoff. The red and black pays even money. So that's all there is to Rockin' 21. Very, very simple. And the Hard Rockin' Dice is just a matter of, the points before 7 or the horn numbers before 7. That's all it is. And the 3 names of the bets are the 6-string, the Fab 4, and the tenor. So it's, and the thing about it compared to like bonus craps, a lot of people say, God, I almost hit it, because they got 9 out of 10. On 9 out of 10 on Hard Rockin' Dice, you still get 20 to 1. So, my games have done really well. As far as the outside vendors, Crisscross Poker is one of the newer games. It's for AGS. It's caught fire. We still got the games out there that they're a few years old, but like Free Bet, they're still smoking the industry. Everybody loves Free Bet. But as far as new games, it's been kind of a dry spell for something really major crushing the market. And we were talking last night. I was talking to Brent Weiss of Money Suite, and he's got a great new game called Advantage Street Card Fury that he's trying to get out into the market. But we went over the pitfalls of developing a game. So if any of your viewers want to know what it's really like to become come up with this idea and what it takes to get it to fruition, watch the most recent episode of Being a No with Brent, and you'll find out. And he's actually a lawyer, which even makes it better. He knows all the legalese of getting your game patent and etc.
Well, yes, I highly encourage you guys to go listen to that. Now, I have one more question. You can make it quick because I want everyone to go watch that video. But what is the upside of developing a game? Because it sounds like it's a slog to get one in, but is it obviously? I mean, I assume there must be a payoff. So what is it? Is it generally like you have to track the handle, like how much goes through the game, and the inventory gets a little cut of that, or how does it normally work if you get your game in a casino?
Prior to, even now, if you're an individual operator, vendor with a game, you get a lease fee every month. So like the games that Sci Games have now they've come up with some sweet prices, which I incorporate. So I get all the games for a certain price because people's palate changes, right? So you may have people all want to play Ultimate Texas Hold'em. So you put 3 of them in for 7 months. Now one of them goes kind of dead and you want to change it to a Mississippi Stud. Well, the suite allows you to change around these games. But prior to the suites, you paid on each individual game. And one of the most expensive games was like 3-card poker, depending on your lease arrangement and your size of your property. You could be paying as much as $2,700 a month for one game. So you just do the math, how many 3-card pokers there is in the United States and Europe and everywhere. So that's where the gold comes in. If you strike it and you hit a game like 3-card poker, you're an instant millionaire. But that's not the norm. That's the dream of everybody. So they're all trying to become the next 3-card poker because it was a $1 million idea. Very simple.
Wow. So transitioning to kind of table games operations. So our core business is URComped, and based on how much a player plays, they get comp different amounts. And so obviously table game players are very concerned with what their average bet is, how long are they logged in for. So how does that work? Like, because I know it's a kind of a gray area that a lot of people don't understand. So somebody sits down, they buy in, they start playing. How is their rating tracked?
Yeah, well, this is a great question because I don't know how many times a week you have a player come up and say they missed that $200. I just bought it in an extra $200. That buy-in is virtually meaningless. I mean, it would have a place in a VIP, somebody who's buying in tens of thousands of dollars. But if your floorman misses $100 from you, don't panic. What you need them to do is get your average bet and the time played right. And if you want to confirm that, the best place to do it is before you leave the game. Make sure your average bet is what it is. You might even be able to, I didn't say this on nationally broadcast, but you may be able to say, hey, they only got me at 25, I was at 35, and they may give you the 35, which is good for you, right? You just boosted your reinvestment. But you're right. Average bet, time played is key, unless it's a quick loss. And most, if you come in and you dump 5,000 in 5 minutes, you got no time on device. You've got actually no Theo buildup. So what do I comp you on? I'm going to comp you on that quick loss, and most quick losses, usually like 20% of your loss, will give you back in some kind of reinvestment.
Got it. And so players playing, some people have progressive betting systems, or they're just feeling it and they start betting more because they've got a hot streak and the pit boss doesn't come around for a while. And that you're saying maybe it might be a good idea for them to mention something that before they leave the table, that their bet had gone up.
Right. And depending on how you play, I would make your first bet your highest bet, because then we can talk about this, and when you got guys, especially when you're in a section of a guy watching 8 games, he's not watching your game consistently. Our method at the Hard Rock and my method lifetime is to take 3 different samples of the player's bet every 15 minutes of their play. And that's, the first bet, of course. 15 minutes, you're going to look again. 50 minutes after that, you're going to look again. And you're going to see, and you'll come up with an average. Someday, somewhere, somebody is going to develop the Holy Grail. And where bet recognition takes care of all that, and reinvestment's exactly right. A camera's either going to read your chips, or right now that technology is there, but it's so expensive with RFI, which is a little transmitter inside the chip. That's just not practical to do, except for the huge Asian, multi-million dollar destinations.
I was going to ask you about that, because I have heard, I feel like since I worked in the casino in 2008, there's been talk about, oh yeah, there's going to be magnets in the chips, and it'll read everything. And then like you mentioned, the video technology. So is it really just a cost issue that has kept that from being more widespread?
Yeah, and the RFI, the radio frequency transmitters from the chips, and picking them up, is the technology is never ever. Now we had it, the first beta, which was amazing, and in the Hard Rock 20 years ago. In 20 years, we still haven't got the technology down to a price where it's reasonable for the normal operator. But several NRT, a couple of these vendors, they're really close with the camera technology, and what they will do is read your chips from the sides through colors and patterns on the chips, and they'll be able to tell the denomination and how many chips you have. I've seen a technology at G2E which I tried to tear up, and I set multiple rainbow bets 8 times, and 6 out of the 8 they got it right. But 2 out of the 8 they didn't get right, to a huge amount of money. So it's got to be a perfect, but it's coming. It's coming. And whoever does it first, you talk about the game, like getting another 3-card, whoever gets that first bet recognition down to where it's flawless is a $1 billion company overnight.
All right. Well, let me add that to my to-do list for today. Now, so I mentioned with URComp, we deal with a lot of comp level players. Our sweet spot, though, we're not dealing with 100K, $1 million players. So very rarely have we been dealing with a player where we kind of ask to negotiate special rules on table games. But we have done it. But again, not too often. But tell us about that. Like, at what level do you start entertaining, slight tweaks to blackjack rules? And then what does that do for the odds of the game?
Well, Craig, I don't get that much in like Cincinnati of that kind of activity. But when I was in Las Vegas, we did do a lot of special limits and deals. And there's actually deal sheets. I'm sure you're aware of that when you get to that point in time. And what you would do as a representative, you're going to tell me what you think your player is going to bet. He's going to play 4 hours on roulette at a $500 average. Well, I'm going to know right then and there what our expectation of return on investment is. And I'm going to judge how much I'm going to give him, or how much vulnerability, and because we don't always win. But believe it or not, the casinos do not always win. So we got to be prepared for that particular situation to kick in. And some players are so big, they're way beyond the bankroll of a casino. So if that plays out, I'm going to say, hey, Craig, you might want to try the Bellagio, because I just can't take this guy's act. I can't give him the deal he wants to come in the door. And you're right, there'll be multiple hands. Might be 3 hands of 15,000. Okay, well, I gotta say, well, this guy can beat me for $3.2 million, and apparently this is my threshold of loss that I'm willing to take to gain this whatever $50,000 in guaranteed return on investment. So that's how it works. Believe it or not, that's the big secret.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember what some, like blackjack, it's like dealer doesn't hit on a soft 17, or what are some of the most common like exceptions to the rules for these high-end blackjack players, for example?
So a lot of them will want to resplit aces. They'll want to surrender. You're right. They want you to stand on 17. Heck, some of them will want you to take all the 5s out of the deck, which isn't going to happen, But it gets pretty extreme sometimes. But that's the key rules for a high-end blackjack player would be, standing on 17, resplitting aces, doubling after the split, even to the point of maybe taking a third card on a thing. It's been done. In craps, it's always the limits on the props. It's the limits on the, it's uh, extra bets, put bets on top, which is doubling up on a number. It can get pretty crazy, and especially craps. The multiple is just gigantic. If you don't know your math as an operator when you're dealing with somebody like this, you can lose your job in one bad decision.
Oof. Well, obviously you've avoided those bad decisions over over several years, and so is there anything we didn't cover today that is interesting, or something for our listeners to think about?
Comping is a thing that's very. I think it's a comper's market right now because the activity is to make the guest happy, and we're really in a bad place right now. Like I told you, with a mask on, I can't smile at you and make you happy. So you can push the envelope as a person looking to get a little bit of increased reinvestment. I think you can push that envelope now. And I got to tell you, if you get a survey from a casino, fill it out, because you may get a call from somebody who's willing to just give you the world, and I would tell the truth, because we do kind of have a manual for those who like to embellish the truth. But you know what? If you really had a problem, or you didn't think something worked out for you, even if it's minor, tell, and that could get you an extra steak dinner, or it could get you a comp to a buffet that you weren't normally going to get.
Awesome. Well, Benny, this has been fascinating for me. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, I love all facets of this industry, from marketing. I've been around some of the great marketers. Whale hunting in the desert. I've known Steve for 30 years, and the whole marketing is just a game between me and you. It's me. I'm trying to get the customer in for the cheapest price. So we were talking about making deals. I want to cut the best deal for the house. The marketing representative, or they want to make the best deal for their player, and it's been a fun. Like I said, I love all facets, and I just want to give back. Like I said, my motto is paying it forward, and that's part of what I'm doing. I'm being a know. I'm trying to get the information out there. We talked earlier, and I said, right now it's kind of strictly for the table games operator, but we're going to expand out to your audience and the player as we get into the series, and as Being the Know progresses. And we're going to interview more people who are be a little bit more interesting just to the normal person coming in every day, trying to get that return on their investment out there with that $40, $50 bet.
Well, Benny, thank you so much. Again, the YouTube channel is Be in the Know. Check it out. He's got some fascinating stuff on there. And also on if somebody wants to get a hold of you, is LinkedIn the best way to find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best. I'm not much of a Facebook guy, and I'm not much of a Twitter guy. The industry site there with professionals, I like to stick to one platform, and LinkedIn is it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Benny. This has been awesome, and let's do it again soon.
All right, Craig. Thank you.